Welcome, everybody. I'm pleased to be sharing this wonderful occasion with my fellow trustees, alumni, faculty, and students, and of course the donors who made this project possible. This is an extraordinary day for Dickinson College. The new science facility that we celebrate today is the largest and most expensive construction project we have ever undertaken. Designed to set the standard for 21st century science education, the Science Complex symbolically reaches into our past and points to our future. Science education has been a part of Dickinson's story from the beginning. I'm going to get to his name before President Durden does. As a physician and America's first professor of chemistry, our founder, Dr. Benjamin Rush, anticipated what a central role scientific discovery would play in the evolution of the new nation. He insisted that science be incorporated into Dickinson's curriculum, believing that the sciences would help students make connections between existing and emerging disciplines that would lead ultimately to the creation of new knowledge and new frontiers of intellectual inquiry. Dr. Rush would be amazed at what his college has created and how it will transform the way science is taught, the ways our students learn, and ways our faculty approach their work. The beautiful building before you makes science visible and accessible to the entire campus community. It is designed to facilitate interdisciplinary learning and research for the several programs housed here, including biology, chemistry, biochemistry, and molecular biology, psychology, and neuroscience. Physical links to Tome Hall further reinforce the relationship among the sciences, bringing physics and astronomy and mathematics and computer science into the interdisciplinary environment. The design of the building, from the planning process to the completed project, reflects Dickinson's commitment to sustainable development and environmental stewardship. Today, we are here to celebrate the opening of this magnificent building and celebrate those individuals and families who made this possible. I'd now like to ask Sylvia Smith, class of '73, trustee and chair of the Facilities Committee, to come forward to share her thoughts about the planning process and design of the building.
Thank you, Jennifer. This is a wonderful day. I could stand here and talk about the sense of place and the focus that this beautiful building reflects, that it's looking forward for a campus very rich in tradition. But today, I wish to talk about the fact that the success of this building is a reflection of the process of its making, and that all who participated subscribed to the important tenets of the Dickinson liberal arts education. In the conclusion of reflections on the Dickinson curriculum in its 225th year, I'm going to quote Dean Weissman. I knew everybody else was going to do Benjamin Rush, so I'm shifting here. He says, "Be curious, subject your views to criticism, consider alternative perspectives, work together and assess evidence, understand the limits of your and all our knowledge, and come to conclusions with both imagination and humility."
Having already been quoted, I'm tempted to quit while I'm ahead, but I will make some remarks for this afternoon, this wonderful dedication. Dickinson, as Bill likes to say, is an institution that enjoys taking on big challenges and particularly enjoys addressing national issues. And early in the 1990s, we determined that one of the issues with which we wanted to engage was the issue of science. And by that I mean both the nation's crying need for new scientists and also the need for all of our public, not just the scientists themselves, but everyone else, to have at least some understanding of scientific issues as well. And that meant that we needed to increase the number of science majors at the college, and it also meant that we needed to create imaginative and effective programming for those people whom one science writer has called the soft-shelled creatures called non-majors. In order to do this, our faculty created a really imaginative program of innovation in the sciences built around 3 ideas. One of them was more creative pedagogies at the introductory level, the notion that the old survey approaches to science were not adequate, that students need to be connected to the scientific endeavor in more effective ways right at the beginning. The second element was a stronger emphasis on hands-on work in the laboratory, bringing students into research early and making ever deeper opportunities for them later on. And the third dimension was interdisciplinarity, the notion that separate scientific disciplines should be brought together, reflecting, in fact, the reality that many of the most exciting developments in science were at the connecting points of disciplines where they crossed, not in separate silos. And so the faculty created this tripartite, extraordinarily imaginative program to very good effect. Now, I know that at a lot of institutions, when you're dealing with an issue like this, and you want to attract students to a particular field, the impulse is, well, let's put up a building and that will attract them. Build it and they will come, right? We did it the other way around. We thought it through first and then we built it. We've done this in 2 phases so far. The first is TOME, the initial building of the Science Complex, which was built in part around imaginative pedagogies, workshop physics, for example. The second keystone phase of this process is the Rector 2 buildings that you see in front of you, which carries forward the commitment to active pedagogies, to a heavy emphasis on labs, and also, I think, makes a very bold step toward interdisciplinarity, something that scientists and academicians in general talk about all the time, but rarely do. This building, with its determination to, as the architects say, confetti the faculty through the building by having just people from different disciplines located together based on their shared research interests, this building is very bold in that regard. And the process will be completed sooner, we hope, rather than later, with the construction of the capstone phase of the project, the 3rd hall of the Rector Complex. But now, however, the emphasis is, of course, on our wonderful 2nd phase, one that you will all have an opportunity to see in more depth after we've finished. I simply want to thank everyone who's been involved in the process and tell you that virtually everything that I have heard about the building has been positive, not a single faculty complaint, which must be a miracle. And congratulations to all involved. Thank you.
Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us on such an historic day for Dickinson College. Today, we gather to dedicate the completion of the most ambitious construction project in Dickinson's 225-year history. The building behind me is not only a state-of-the-art science facility that will position Dickinson as a leader among liberal arts colleges for the 21st century. It also represents the culmination of one of Dr. Benjamin Rush's original dreams for our college. We all know that Dr. Rush was incredibly insightful and well ahead of his time, sadly ahead of his time, in many, many ways. But perhaps on no issue was he more on target than his foresight of the role science would play in America's future. Rush knew that the pragmatic, self-sufficient spirit that emerged in colonial America would become a defining characteristic of the new nation. With the same revolutionary zeal that made the war for independence successful, the new American citizens immediately began to push the boundaries of existing knowledge with a passion for innovation and a willingness to cross disciplines that has become a hallmark of our nation at its best. Today, 225 years after Dickinson College was chartered, scientific discovery and interdisciplinary exploration, connectedness, have become the intellectual and economic engines of the 21st century. Today, science possesses a singular strength to drive our economy, define the environmental quality of our life, monitor and improve our health, and provide us with a rapidly changing pace of technological innovation that would have astounded even Dr. Rush, who himself was a pretty speedy guy. This building and the exciting work that will occur within its walls places Dickinson squarely in the midst of the most momentous developments of our time. It is difficult to describe adequately the impact of this building will have on our campus. Putting it simply, we don't construct buildings of this size and stature, but every few decades, if that. In fact, the Rector Science Complex is only the second building we have constructed in the past quarter century. The other new building, Tome Hall, and of course, Rector consists of Stewart Hall and James Hall. The other new building, Tome Hall, as Neil mentions, was completed nearly a decade ago. These adjoining buildings not only increase campus space by nearly 10%, these two, but they also shift the axis of our campus to give the sciences the symbolic and real presence they occupy in our global society. They give material witness to the telescope that Dr. Rush so interestingly and provocatively included to represent knowledge on the college's college seal of 1783. The physical infrastructure of our campus plays an increasingly key role in shaping the academic and residential life of the college. The innovative interdisciplinary design of the Rector Science Complex will encourage our students to seek creative connections among the sciences, just as the prominent position of the science building with our campus will invite students from all disciplines to understand and integrate the importance of scientific discovery into their own intellectual pursuits. The dedication of this building is important in yet another very significant way. We are, as we all know, in fiscally challenging times. During the last 9 years, we have worked diligently to secure Dickinson's financial stability so that the college would be positioned to withstand precisely the kind of turbulence we face today. The way this building was planned and constructed symbolizes the foresight and fiscal prudence we have demonstrated in so many areas of our operation. This building, as Sylvia mentioned, was completed on time, on budget, and is fully paid for. We are therefore able to move into the future far less encumbered and with financial intentionality and focus. The careful planning that went into creating this magnificent facility allows us to dedicate a building that, by its nature and design, looks far into the 21st century to educate the next generation and generations after that. The value of obtaining a substantive education like that at Dickinson is now, and the payout and benefit will be substantial through our students' lives. We have, in other words, positioned Dickinson College to continue its striking momentum, especially in the most demanding of times. This is no small accomplishment, and I extend my gratitude to the trustees, the campus operations staff, the members of the building planning committee, and the other members of the administration who worked so hard to bring us to this day. That said, our due diligence and disciplined financial work will continue without pause to guarantee our students receiving the essential Dickinson education well into the future, and to ensure our donors, extremely important to us, of seeing the concrete results of their investment responsibly executed. Most importantly, I want to acknowledge with immense gratitude those donors who have allowed us to accomplish successfully one of the 4 priorities of our current capital campaign, extremely successful capital campaign. Their generosity has made this dream a reality and has given us the foundation for future accomplishment. We'll now proceed to a very exciting part of this program, the ribbon cutting. I would ask, as I mention your names, that you please come forward. I must first acknowledge Robert D. Rector, class of 1945, and his wife Dorothy, for whom the Science Complex is named. In December 2004, we learned that the Rectors had left a significant portion of their estate to Dickinson College, a gift that exceeded $17 million. It came at an extremely propitious time, giving us the confidence to think broadly and boldly about all of our science facilities and to conceive of them as a cohesive continuum to promote a creative interdisciplinary exchange of knowledge within the liberal arts. Representing the family is John Weber, nephew of Robert and Dorothy Rector. John, will you please come forward? The initial hull of the Keystone phase of the Science Complex was made possible through the generosity of the Stewart family, a family very dear to Dickinson College. Many of you may remember that we announced their very generous gift of $5 million when we broke ground for the building in May 2006. I am absolutely delighted and not surprised that there are many members of the Stewart family with us today, and I invite them to come forward. Trustee Wynne Stewart Amick, class of 1962, and her son Bill Amick, class of 1993, and his wife Cheryl, class of 1991. Accompanying Bill and Cheryl are, we trust, two future Dickinsonians, Meredith and Madeline. Would you please come forward? We are also extremely pleased that Wynne's brother, Bob Stewart, and his wife, Bobby, are with us today. If they would please come forward. They traveled a great distance, and we appreciate them being here today. Thank you. This hall, magnificent hall, is a wonderful testament to your family's generosity. And to Wynne and Bob's father, J. William Stewart, class of 1932, and their mother, Helen, also a member of the class of 1932. It is equally appropriate as we dedicate a premier science facility that one of Bill Stewart's most notable accomplishments, and this again, a Dickinsonian, who is interacting with the world for an issue that matters here from Carlisle, Pennsylvania. One of his most notable accomplishments was his contribution as an early Pfizer pharmaceutical executive to advance the production and worldwide distribution of what we now take for granted, penicillin, an effort that ultimately saved millions of lives globally during and after World War II. Thank you. To the Stewart family, thank you. The largest classroom in the new building is a state-of-the-art auditorium that will serve the entire science complex. We were able to construct this wonderful room in the way that we dreamed through the generosity of Trustee Emerita Inga Paul Stafford, class of 1958, and her husband, John R. Stafford, class of 1959. This auditorium will forever bear their name in recognition of their remarkable commitment to the alma mater. Unfortunately, they could not be here today. Trustee Susan Pohl, class of 1980, and her husband John, class of 1978, are also to be commended for funding 3 research labs in Stewart Hall. Susan and John also could not join us today. There are other significant contributors who have named spaces, significant spaces in our buildings, many of whom are with us today. I invite them to come forward for the ribbon cutting. Dear friend and colleague in higher education, Neil Abram, class of 1972, Abraham is class of 1972, and his wife, Donna Wiley. She is not attending, but Neil, welcome and thank you. See, I was class of 1971, and he was 72, so we did know each other. These are 2 student alcoves in Stewart Hall, one named for Dr. Benjamin Rush. Thank you, Neil. Thank you very much. And one name for Joseph Priestley. That's also good. And also the laser lab in Stewart Hall. Jack Hurst, class of 1961, and his wife Nancy, who have named the organic chemistry teaching lab, very critical lab, in Stewart Hall. If you would both please come forward. Judge Gerald Weinstein, Class of 1952 and his wife Claire have named a research lab in James Hall. If you both come forward. There they are. Okay. Nick and Doris Stamos. Now this I think is extremely important. Nick and Doris did not graduate from Dickinson so far as I know, but both worked here, both committed to this organization. Nick and Doris Stamos have named one of the faculty-student interaction areas in James Hall. Nick, welcome. And we are very honored. We also have with us a dear friend and a really good mentor who gives me great advice, and that is Dr. Benjamin James, class of 1934, for whom James Hall was named by a gift from Robert Wise, class of 1953, and his wife Joanne, class of 1955, who unfortunately could not be with us today. Ben, please come forward. Now we proceed to the moment. Wynn, if you would come forward and do the honors. Let me turn it this way. I learned that you know. See, I do have some manners, yet this way. Wynn, if you would please stay. That's right. Will you please do the honor, and you might want to be joined by some friends, of cutting the fabric, which will mark the official opening of Stewart Hall and James Hall, the college's newest additions to the Rector Science Complex, also composing Tome Hall. Please.
While they're, it looks like they're ready.
Again, thank you very much. Thanks to the generosity and vision of our donors, Stewart Hall and James Hall are now officially dedicated and open for the advancement of science, a potent component of a distinctly American liberal arts education. Welcome. Please join us. Thank you. Good afternoon.